January 30th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the U.S. response to the drone attack in Jordan. The White House says it's not looking for a war with Iran, but Secretary of State Antony Blinken raised the possibility that the U.S. response to the attack that left 3 American soldiers dead could be prolonged and multi-staged. Russian President Vladimir Putin officially registered himself for the March Russian presidential election. With his approval ratings already hovering around 80%, it's almost a given that the Russian leader will secure yet another 6-year term in office. The climate card that allows unlimited use of public transportation for around $50 a month is now available here in Seoul City. 200,000 cards were sold within 5 days of its release, with many people looking to buy their own at subway stations and convenience stores. Washington on Monday vowed to retaliate against the drone attack that killed the 3 U.S. troops on Sunday. The U.S. identified the 3 soldiers killed on duty, all from the state of Georgia. Lee Sun-kyun starts us off.
3 U.S. soldiers were killed and dozens injured in a drone attack on a base in Jordan by Iran-supported forces on Sunday. This prompted a response from Washington with a vow to retaliate against Iran-backed forces for their deadly attack. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Monday that the U.S. will engage in strong multi-level and continuous retaliation against those responsible for the attack. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, in an interview with MSNBC on Monday, also reiterated President Joe Biden's earlier call for retaliation. Kirby stressed that the U.S. must do what it can to protect its soldiers and facilities, adding Biden will make the right decision at the right time. However, the spokesman stressed that the U.S. does not want a war with Iran, nor does it want to escalate tensions in the Middle East. When asked if that meant there wouldn't be any military action inside Iran, Kirby avoided a direct answer, instead saying that the U.S. will respond appropriately. Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Department identified the 3 soldiers who were killed on Sunday in the drone attack conducted by the Iran-backed militant groups. 46-year-old Sergeant William Rivers, 24-year-old Specialist Kennedy Sanders, and 23-year-old Specialist Brianna Moffitt, all from the U.S. state of Georgia, were killed in the attack. Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh said all 3 were assigned to the 718th Engineer Company, a U.S. Army Reserve unit based out of Fort Moore, Georgia. Lee Sun-kyun, Arirang News.
A U.S. response to the killing of 3 American soldiers in a drone attack linked to Iran appears to be inevitable. Let's discuss more about possible U.S. options with Professor Kim Hyun-wook this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. American soldiers were killed in the Middle East for the first time since the start of Israel-Hamas war. What does this say about situations over in Gaza? Is the war getting more complicated?
Well, I think definitely the situation is getting more and more complicated. The initial intention of the U.S. is to manage the situations, to make the Israel not to attack too much, to come up with the agreement as soon as possible. But as 3 soldiers have been killed by drone attack, which by the Iran-backed militant group operating in Syria and Iraq, I think that there should be some sort of very serious response by the United States, which means that there's a possibility that this war could be enlarged into a bigger and larger scale warfare in this region, which the United States' initial intention was not about. So this is, I think, big agony the U.S. is. I think the U.S. will try to determine what kind of and what sort of and in what gamut the response would be implemented.
Definitely. In fact, U.S. President Joe Biden said it himself that there will be a response from Washington. Now, I have to ask you, Professor Kim, then the question is, what kind of response, what form will we have to see, and to what extent will the U.S. forces be?
Well, yes, as I have mentioned, the spokesman of the White House definitely avoided what sort of and what kind of response the Biden government will implement. But I think definitely there should be some sort of serious response by the United States, because U.S. soldiers has been killed, and also a lot of Republican parliamentarians are saying that this is some sort of mistake by the Biden government's weak response, and there should be a very serious response. So Chief of Staff Charles Brown definitely said that the objective is to prevent them, but it should not be leading to a larger scale conflict in Middle East. So I think definitely there will be some sort of response. For example, assassination targeting the leadership of Hamas, and maybe targeting a Iran territory, sort of things like that, which is not clearly instigating the warfare that can lead to the larger scale.
Definitely. In the meantime, though, things are looking bright for a potential agreement under which Israel will pause military operations against Hamas for 2 months in exchange for a release of more than 100 hostages. How likely is it that the proposed deal would actually end the war?
Well, at least the fact that they are negotiating, and 4 countries, for example, the U.S., Israel, Qatar, and Egypt, are talking about the agreement is very, promising. It's very positive signal. The first step is that 30-day stoppage of warfare in exchange for female and old hostages and injured hostages to be released. And second stage is to release the military people of Israel and also male hostages in exchange for another 30-day stoppage of military operations. But I'm not sure how this will be leading to a permanent ceasefire, because we know that they're talking about the complete ceasefire based upon these two-stage stoppage. But because, they have still very big differences in their opinions. 4 countries are talking about completely ending the antagonistic behaviors and also allowing the Palestinian independent states. But Israel is very negative about the Palestinian independent state establishment. And also Hamas is not completely destroyed from the Israeli perspective. So there are a lot of more things that the 4 countries need to talk and come up with an agreement for a complete ceasefire.
So you're saying the deal may not be enough to end the war, but it would still lay the groundwork for a durable resolution to the conflict, right?
Yes, it definitely 30 days and 30 days, which is altogether 60 days war stoppage is very positive signal and positive opportunity to come up with complete ceasefire. And a lot of European countries and the U.S. is, especially the United States Biden government, their warfare, possible warfare is targeting the Taiwan Strait region and the war in Ukraine, and this Hamas-Israel warfare is something that the U.S. does not want to get engaged too much. So there's a strong willingness by European and the U.S. countries to finish this warfare. So I think the talk and dialogue towards the agreement, I think, will continue, and I hope that they come up with the positive outcome.
Definitely. All right, Professor Kim Yoon-ok, thank you so much for your insight this morning. You have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is officially registered for the March Russian presidential election. With an 80% approval rating, it's almost certain he'll garner yet another 6-year term. Our Lee Sun-kyun has more.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will be running for office for the 5th time in the 2024 presidential election. On Monday, Russia's election commission announced his official registration as a candidate for the upcoming election in March. The 71-year-old incumbent president has an approval rating of about 80%, with his chance of securing another 6-year term in power almost certain.
Who is for, who is against, who abstained, approved unanimously.
Running as an independent, Putin required at least 300,000 signatures gathered by his campaign from at least 40 regions of Russia. Following an examination of 315,000 signatures collected from 89 regions, Russia's Central Election Commission officially approved Putin's candidacy for the election.
It's a great honor to receive and hand over the certificate of Russia's presidential candidacy to Vladimir Putin. I will do it very soon.
After winning his first in 2000, Putin has won all 4 presidential elections in which he has been a candidate. He also served a 4-year term as prime minister from 2008 to 2012. In 2018, Putin separated himself from the United Russia Party, choosing to run independently, winning over 75% of the vote. 3 other candidates from parties represented in parliament have also been approved from a total of over 30 candidates. Putin himself made a change to Russia's constitution in 2020, which allows him to run for 2 more 6-year terms and potentially remain in power until 2036. 이은희, Arirang News.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg held talks on Monday and expressed concerns over military cooperation between North Korea and Russia. During their talks in Washington, the two discussed concerns that an arms transfer would further assist Russia in its war in Ukraine. The meeting came as Stoltenberg was in the U.S. Capitol to discuss maintaining support for Ukraine and preparations for the NATO summit, which will take place in Washington in July. The White House said Pyongyang has provided Moscow with several dozen ballistic missiles for use in Ukraine, as well as ammunition and other military equipment. The European Union has decided to extend the economic sanctions imposed on Russia for another 6 months. The EU Council made the announcement on Monday, citing Russia's continued actions that destabilize the situation in Ukraine. With that, the sanctions will remain in place until the end of July. Since Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, the EU has been implementing sanctions against Moscow, the scope of which has expanded since the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. The most recent round of sanctions include a ban on the import of diamonds, as Russia is the world's largest producer of diamonds. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that EU is considering new sanctions with an adoption date of February 24th in mind, the 2nd anniversary of the Ukraine war. With just around $50 a month, people here in Seoul can now have unlimited use of public transportation with the newly released climate card. It's so popular that it's almost a hunt to buy one. Our Park Gon-woo has the story.
Unlimited access to public transportation is now available in the capital. The Seoul metropolitan government started a new 6-month pilot project on Saturday that allows limitless public transport access with its so-called climate card as a means to cope with climate change and lower household expenses. The card is based on the D-ticket issued in Germany. According to the metropolitan government, it is expecting 13,000 fewer cars to be used and a cut of 32,000 tons in greenhouse gases emitted annually through this project. The climate card allows people to ride subways or buses within Seoul for 62,000 Korean won, or a little under $50 per month, if downloaded to a mobile phone, and even public bikes if users add around $2 more.
2만 원 정도 절약되는 걸로 알고 있어요. 교통비가 고정적으로 나가니까 좀 좋을 것 같다 생각을 하고 있습니다.
The card is valid on subway lines within the Seoul region, including numbers 1 to 9, Sillim and Suinbundang, among others, although some are excluded, such as the Shinbundang line, due to different fare structures. Users will need to pay an additional charge to subway employees when traveling to stations not included in the pilot project. Most intra-capital bus routes are also part of the project. Green and blue buses heading to places outside Seoul are included if the bus license plate was issued by the Seoul local government. The transport passes can be bought at offices inside subway stations or nearby convenience stores. I also bought this card, the climate card, for 3,000 won. You just need to charge it using this machine, just like any other transportation card. Android phone users can get the mobile version of the card by downloading the T-Money application. After sales began on January 23rd, nearly 200,000 cards were sold within 3 days, leading to many subway stations and convenience stores running out due to their popularity. And more than 70,000 people used the card on the first day. But some spoke about the need for improvement.
광역버스나 지하철 여러 가지 노선도 다 이용 가능하게 하면은 많은 사람들이 더 이용할 것 같아요.
Meanwhile, Seoul said it would do its best to remove any inconveniences found during the climate card pilot project. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Now, over in Gangwon, young athletes from around the world continue chasing their dreams. To cheer them on, 3 legendary South Korean Olympic medalists, including figure skating champion Kim Yeon-ah, share their know-how on achieving their goals. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Grow together, shine forever. In Korea's eastern province of Gangwon, where the Winter Youth Olympics are taking place, 3 legendary Korean Olympic gold medalists gathered with the teens on Sunday to share their youthful experiences. In their presentations, they provided practical advice and hopeful messages on how to overcome limitations and achieve their goals. Kim Yeon-ah, the iconic figure skater who won gold and silver Olympic medals in 2010 and 2014 respectively, said she was always prepared to fall and controlled her mental health.
I prepared for the worst and imagined making mistakes before the games, all to take care of my mental health. I've always thought that it's okay if things don't go well, and the thought that I can fail anytime helped me relieve the pressure.
Ryu Seung-min, the gold medalist in table tennis at the 2004 Olympics and a member of the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission since 2016, said it was important not to set limits based on what people say, especially after hard preparations.
Nobody expected me to win, but I had confidence in myself because I had prepared a lot. I could have been low on confidence because people had judged me in that way, but I kept myself thinking, oh, I did well even when I lost. So ironically, it eased the pressure on me.
2018 Olympic skeleton gold medalist Yoon Sung-bin emphasized trying to experience as much as possible to find one's own strengths.
When you are young, it's good to try many different things. I believe that finding one's talent is the hardest task. So, you need to have various experiences to discover what you can excel in.
The Gangwon 2024 Winter Youth Olympics, with South Korea hosting the first ever event in Asia, will run until February 1st. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The horror film Sleep, starring the late actor Lee Sun-kyun, has won the Best Picture award at an annual French horror film festival. The debut feature by Jason Yu was awarded the Grand Prix at the Drumray International Fantastic Film Festival on Sunday. The festival has honored the best horror, mystery, and sci-fi film since 1994. Previously, Changwa-ungyeon by Kim Ji-woon and Be Devil by Jang Chol-soo won the same top prize in 2004 and 2011, respectively. Sleep tells the story of newlyweds whose lives are turned upside down when the husband exhibits bizarre behavior while asleep. The film was also screened at the Cannes Critics Week section at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today in France, where groups of farmers on Monday blocked major roads towards the capital, Paris, with tractors and a wall of hay in what they are calling the Siege of Paris. With similar demonstrations taking place across the country, the French police have not yet intervened to remove the roadblocks. Angry farmers have been protesting for days, the majority of whom are unhappy about the EU's 2023 nature restoration law, which requires environmental measures to restore a fifth of the member states' land and sea by 2030. Protests have spread to Belgium and Germany, where tractors are blocking routes to Hamburg's ports. French authorities have reportedly mobilized around 15,000 police officers to prevent tractors from entering Paris and other major cities. But many farmers showed their determination to stay in protest until change is made, with some saying that their aim is to stop food deliveries to supermarkets. A French government spokesperson said on Monday afternoon that new measures in support of the farmers will likely be announced from Tuesday onwards. Now, Hong Kong's High Court on Monday ordered the liquidation of the debt-ridden giant property developer Evergrande. In what is expected to be a heavy blow to the Chinese economy, Evergrande has been at the center of China's property crisis as the world's most indebted property giant exceeds $300 billion in debt. Evergrande's liquidation order comes as the Chinese real estate giant failed to agree on a concrete debt restructuring plan with its international creditors, even after negotiating for the past 19 months. Judge Linda Chan turned down Evergrande's request made on Friday for another 3 months of leeway, saying that enough is enough. The Shenzhen-based developer defaulted on its debt in 2021 and filed for bankruptcy in New York in 2023. Evergrande had total liabilities of $333 billion in June last year. Hong Kong court showed that overseas creditors are owed $25 billion. While it remains unclear how much effect the Hong Kong court's decision can have in mainland China, experts speculate ripples to be felt in capital markets around the world. In sports news, Olympic gold medalist and Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva has received a 4-year suspension for doping. The Court of Arbitration for Sports decision on Monday also effectively strips the Russian Olympic Committee of its gold medal in the team event. Valieva tested positive for the banned substance trimetazidine, used for the prevention of angina at the Russian National Championships in December 2021. However, her positive results was only made known a day after she won gold at the Beijing Winter Olympics in 2022, to which the IOC decided no medals would be given out until Valieva's case had been resolved. As the Lausanne-based court decided on Monday, Valieva's 4-year ban is backdated to the 25th of December 2021. Lastly, the world's largest cruise ship, the Icon of the Seas, began its maiden voyage on Saturday from the port of Miami. The ship is around 365 meters from bow to stern, which is the size of almost 4 city blocks. The cruise ship, operated by the Royal Caribbean Group, is divided into 8 neighborhoods across 20 decks, including 6 water slides, 7 swimming pools, an ice skating rink, a theater, and more than 40 restaurants, bars, and lounges. The 7,600 passenger capacity cruise ship, which carries another 2,350 crew members, is powered by liquefied natural gas that may reduce sulfur and greenhouse gas emissions.
Good morning. As soon as the cold snap subsides, the air quality worsens in most places. Even Gyeongsang-do provinces will see air quality hitting bad levels today. Those in the southern provinces, however, need to brace for frequent rain for the next few days. Rain will begin from Jeju this afternoon, spreading tonight to Jeollanam-do province. Then the rest of the south will receive rain tomorrow from dawn. Jeju could see up to 30 millimeters. The rest of the south could see 5 to 10 millimeters of showers. However, East Coast regions remain under a dry weather advisory. Now, afternoon highs will be 1 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday. Seoul topping out at 7 degrees, Gwangju and Busan at 11 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Sunny skies in store during the day today. Cold wave alerts remain in place for many parts of Gangwon-do province, but Pyeongchang will finally see highs jumping to above freezing at 1 degree this afternoon. Seoul sees a high of 9 degrees tomorrow. Meanwhile, a frequent wintry mix is in the forecast for southern regions and the east of Gangwon-do province throughout the week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Wednesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
강원 동계 청소년 올림픽 대회. 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Straight through my heart.
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's January 30th here in Seoul. I'm Seung-min, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Good morning. And Brooke Prince.
Hello, how are you?
Happy Tuesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. South Korea's top-tier esports competition, League of Legends Champions Korea, also known as LCK, has been receiving a lot of publicity and grappling with financial challenges ever since China has decided to stop live streaming related content. Tencent's Huya live streaming platform said it would end Chinese broadcasts of the new season. While the company didn't specify why, some industry insiders believe it has to do with the recent controversy around Teen Generation Gaming, also known as Gen G, referring to Taiwan as a separate country in a Facebook post. And our generation is known to prioritize healthy pleasure, which is seeking pleasure while trying to stay healthy. This has led to a surge in demand for tea, which many young adults in Korea believe to be a better alternative than coffee due to its health benefits. According to Starbucks Korea, the number of millennial and Gen Z customers looking for tea-related items at cafes has increased. The latest classic milk tea at Starbucks sold more than 1 million cups within 2 weeks of its release. Gongcha Korea, specializing in tea, has launched over 2,000 stores worldwide. And the global tea market, according to Statista, reached $247 billion last year, which was a 23% increase compared to 2019. An American influencer's YouTube video shedding light on depression issues in South Korean society has gone viral. The influencer, named Mark Manson, said behind Seoul's eye-opening economic and cultural boom is a deep-seated problem of depression. He called South Korea the most depressed country in the world, with the worst aspects of Confucianism, which is shame and judgment, being commonplace. Manson also said, based on Confucian culture, Koreans seem to sacrifice themselves for their family or the community. He also said Korean society emphasizes the worst aspects of capitalism, which is materialism and obsession over money. Now, due to such factors, Manson said Koreans seem to be hesitant and ashamed to talk about mental health issues, which is why the country seems to have one of the lowest depression diagnosis rates in the world. But at the same time, Korea is notoriously known for having the highest suicide rate among all OECD member countries. Now, here in the studio, what did you guys think about Manson's comments and the viral video? And do you agree that Korea has a deep-rooted depression problem?
I do think it is a problem here in Korea, and one example that I think illustrates the issue is whenever I go up to a Korean person and I tell them, for example, I have a headache, they'll say, well, have you gone to the hospital yet? That's their first response. It's a very natural, immediate thing to say. And that's because it's a physical ailment. So even for small physical things, they will rush to get checked out. But when it comes to mental health, I never hear it spoken about. In almost 8 years of being in Korea, I've never heard an open, honest conversation about mental health. So I do think there is still a stigma around it. And I think that also it's a collectivist culture.
Right.
So no one wants to be the squeaky wheel. Everyone is worried about burdening other people, and so they just don't share their problems.
Right.
And that's why we end up seeing these frightening headlines about depression and suicide rates. So I do hope that this is something that Korea can make some progress on. I hope that they can encourage people to open up and admit when they're having a hard time and to seek help.
Exactly. As you mentioned, here in Korea, while we go to the hospital for a common flu, it doesn't seem to be that case when it comes to depression or mental related issues, because we have this collectivist mindset of not wanting to be a burden to other people, especially when it comes to personal problems. But that is definitely taking a toll on our country's mental health status, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to agree with what Manson said before when it comes to people sacrificing themselves for their family and also obviously their work as well. I've been a person who sacrificed myself and been into a low depression myself. And you should treat depression exactly like you would treat any other illness and go and seek professional help. And like Aristotle once said, it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. So go and seek help if you need to.
Exactly. And I think a lot of officials here in Korea, including from those from the health ministry, are trying to really facilitate open discussions on this matter. That's why we're seeing counseling programs being expanded from elementary school students all the way to adults. So hopefully we'll see more development there. Let's now switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. South Korea has traditionally been considered an ethnically homogenous country. But recently, with the surge in foreign workers, international students, and marriage immigrants, we're slowly yet steadily getting ready to become a multicultural society. My AI voice secretary with more.
4.89%. That's how much of the population in Korea are foreigners. The Justice Ministry released some stats last December that showed how over 2.5 million foreigners are living in Korea. Officials welcomed the surge in the foreign population, stressing the importance of immigration policies, mainly because offering Korea as a new immigration hub could tackle the country's dwindling birth rate and projected decline in population.
South Korea is quickly transitioning into a multicultural society, and here in the studio, we're going to find out how exactly. Walter, how exactly are we transitioning into becoming a melting pot?
Well, some of the main reasons why South Korea is becoming a multicultural society is really down to the globalization of our culture. Now, people are traveling more, obviously, after the pandemic and working overseas more as well. Now, for South Korea, especially, the influence is no surprise. It comes from K-contents like your music, movies, and dramas, which have a massive boost for the country to get in visitors or people who are just wanting to move here in general. Not just that, it is also a place that welcomes many international students, and as life goes, sometimes you just get stuck in the one place and you continue to live here, and then it becomes, you know, a romantic relationship with somebody, and therefore we have these multicultural families. And one more reason I would like to mention is job opportunities as well. Now, not just English teaching jobs, but also corporate labor jobs. They all have different reasons for hiring their employees, but yeah, there are many opportunities to work here in Korea.
Right, whether it be for romantic reasons or for job opportunities, we are seeing almost 5% of the population being formed of foreigners. Now, Brooke, would you like to add on to how South Korea is transitioning into becoming a multicultural society?
Yes, definitely. So Korea is approaching the tipping point of officially becoming a multicultural society, which is where 5% or more of the population is from multicultural backgrounds. From my research, I believe we're around 4.89% at this point, so very close to that 5% threshold. And I believe that we will hit it very soon because there is an influx of foreigners coming in. Like Walter mentioned, there are many factors contributing to that. We, of course, have the Korean wave and work opportunities. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that Korea is currently dealing with a low birth rate problem combined with an aging population. So what that means is that the Korean population is staying stagnant while the population of foreigners is increasing. So inevitably, we are naturally going to see some shifting of the population dynamics. And of course, as a foreigner living in Korea myself, I think it's a great thing. I really am happy to see more foreigners coming here because I would recommend it to anyone I know.
It's not only just you. I think the Justice Ministry was well aware that foreigners are playing an important part to South Korea's demographic crisis, which is why officials are trying to strengthen immigration policies out there. And in the meantime, you two are making up that 4.89% of the international population. So what made you choose to come to Korea?
So for me, it's a little cringy, but it was more of a spiritual journey because I was born in South Korea, but I was raised in Australia, and I didn't really live amongst any other Asian groups, or basically it was all Caucasians. So once I reached my 20s, I actually met a lot of Koreans who took me under their wing, and they taught me a lot about the Korean culture, the language, etc., which spurred me to actually move to Korea. And now that has been my original plan was 1 year. Now, in a couple of days, it will be 11 years. Wow. So a lot of things have changed, including now I've started a family. So it looks like I'll be here to stay.
You have a family here in Korea.
Yes.
So you came for a spiritual journey, but ended up living a new life.
Exactly.
So sweet.
Starting a new chapter. What about you, Brooke?
Well, my journey to Korea began with a job advertisement online. It was for teaching English overseas. And at the time, I wasn't really happy with my job situation, my living situation. I just felt kind of restless. And so when I saw this, it just called to me for some reason. I was young, I was in my early 20s, and I thought, oh, this will be a fun adventure. And then when I researched it, I found that there are many wonderful benefits to teaching English in Korea. And not only that, but Koreans really prioritize education, which means that they they respect their teachers a lot. So I figured that it would be a very worthwhile way to spend, like Walter said, just a year. I said it'll just be a year. That was the plan. That's what I told my family. And now, coming up in August, it will be 8 years for me since I've been in Korea.
So both of you, it's almost been a decade.
Yep.
Exactly, time flies. And since you guys moved, do you guys think that the perception towards foreigners have changed, especially since our generation is leading a new societal trend?
Okay, for me it's a little hard to say because if I don't speak, I blend in with the crowd sort of thing. So it's hard for me to get those experiences from maybe how certain people treat foreigners. But going off of what acquaintances have told me, Koreans do sadly look down on certain countries and ethnicities. I won't name any of them, but I think that Caucasian people from wherever, they get treated a little bit better. Not always, there are always exceptions. But yes, that's something I think that we need to change quickly.
Definitely. We were once a homogenous society, and I do think a lot of elderly or people from the older generation were very US-centric. So we had a perception that Caucasians might be the superior race. There were traditional thoughts like that, but nowadays we're seeing more multi-ethnicities here in Korea, and it does seem to be, our country seems to be opening up to the concept of accepting more foreigners, but are we there yet in your opinion?
I would say in my personal experience, I felt welcomed the moment I got here. The day I landed, I remember one of my coworkers, he took me to a grocery store and he introduced me to all the best Korean snacks.
Nice, yeah.
And then he took me aside and he said, look, I know this must be really hard for you because you're living in another country, your family is far away, but I want you to know you have a support system, you can lean on us, and we will be your family until you go back home. And it was so touching to me and so heartwarming, and I've had a lot of experiences like that over the years, just these gestures of kindness to someone from a different background. But of course, I have had some negative experiences. I've had taxi drivers try to rip me off because they assume I won't know enough to know that they're overcharging me. I've had some of them just drive right past me when they see that I'm a foreigner. So I've had some experiences like that, but I do think overall I've been extremely lucky. I've been treated extremely well. And I do think, to Walter's point, I have privilege in that. Not a lot of people have had the same exact experience. There are a lot of people that have experienced discrimination here, and I find that very heartbreaking. I really hope that Korea can make some movement on this front and become more tolerant and open so that every foreigner can just enjoy Korea and feel accepted.
And it's not to say that Korea only has a discrimination and racist problem. It's actually everywhere. Racism is prevalent and common in other parts of the world as well. But now that we're seeing globalization and everyone moving about, trying to live a different life in new countries, I do think that there needs to be more efforts, especially here in Korea that was once traditionally homogenous, now turning into a multicultural society. There seems to be a lot more efforts that South Korea needs to take into account. So what do you think needs to be done for our society to be welcoming foreigners or even mixed children?
Well, I'll compare to what I grew up with in Australia. So I'd say that Australia would be one of the most multicultural countries in the world, despite, you know, being thousands of kilometers from every other country. We have a lot of Europeans, a lot of Asians, a lot of Americans, East Asians, etc., coming to Australia, and now we are getting used to the mixed culture or the multicultural experience there in Australia. And that's also because of like pretty good working conditions as well as student programs. Listen, it isn't perfect. Obviously, there are still the certain groups, the minorities out there that are racist. But in the last couple of decades, I think we've been more of a welcoming country to every different nation. And the racists are heavily outnumbered. And the sane ones usually keep their mouth shut, which is good. So when it comes to example, mixed children, that's also a topic as well. It's very common these days, unlike here in Korea, where it's still relatively a new thing. But no one in Australia usually discriminates against mixed children, which I think is a great thing as well.
So it has to do with the quantity of people we're seeing there. We're seeing so many foreigners there, which is why the country is naturally transitioning into becoming more welcoming. What about in the States? I mean, it's the epitome of being a melting pot.
We are known for being the melting pot of the world in the U.S., and I think that's a beautiful aspect of the country where there's so much diversity, there are so many cultures that are blended together. But of course, we still deal with a lot of discrimination and racism in the States. There's a lot of progress that needs to be made on that front. But if I had to compare the two in terms of openness to foreigners, one example that I'd give is when I first came to Korea and barely spoke Korean, I would try out my little basic phrases, you know, hello and thank you, and I would get such a warm response. It would be, oh my gosh, your Korean is so good, and they just shower you with compliments and reassurance, and I think it's because they genuinely really appreciate any effort that people put into learning such a difficult language and learning about the culture. And so I will give Korea points on that front. I think Korea does a very good job of not putting pressure on foreigners to rapidly assimilate, whereas I think in the US there can almost be this expectation sometimes that you're fluent in English just because you're in the country, which is of course absurd. So I think Korea does do well on that front, but of course, like we've been talking about, there are improvements that can be made.
Exactly, and if I may add on, I think South Korea is also doing a good job, in particular our generation, in the fact that we're trying to welcome foreigners by also speaking the universal language of English. Like, even though we see foreigners on the street, we don't just try to speak Korean, we try to ask them questions or follow-up questions in English, which I think does help people feel more accustomed to society. And another country that's doing a good job of welcoming multi-ethnicities and cultures is the Philippines. That's why we're going to include a Gen Z that's been living there to hear what the pros and cons of a multicultural society are. We're now going to include a fellow Gen Z in our talks. It's Jade Zina Humawas from the Philippines. The Philippines boasts diversity. It has over 100 dialects and many ethnic groups. So we're very glad to hear Jade talk about the Philippines and how multicultural of a society it is. Welcome, Jade.
Hello, everyone.
All right, Jade. Welcome.
It's nice to be back.
All right, we're going to be talking about how the Philippines is a multicultural society. So could you start us off by mentioning some pros and then a few cons?
Yeah, sure. So multicultural society promotes understanding and tolerance by exposing individuals to diverse ideas and customs. It provides opportunities for people to familiarize themselves with the customs, traditions, and beliefs of other cultures, which enhances knowledge and empathy for those with different backgrounds. Moreover, such societies contribute to economic growth through increased trade and tourism and fostering innovation. However, there are some challenges that could affect this multicultural society, which includes cultural conflict, language barriers, social fragmentation, there's discrimination and integration difficulties for some individuals. So the impact of multicultural varies based on context and policies in a specific place or a country.
Excellent. So some are hoping to see the growing international population in Korea tackle the low birth rate problems. Now, do you think this could be a direct solution?
I think merely increasing the international population in Korea may not serve as a direct solution for the low birth rate problem, not only in Korea, but also globally. So the low birth rate problems are influenced by various factors, and resolving this issue requires comprehensive policies addressing economic stability, family support, and achieving a harmonious work-life balance. So while multiculturalism can bring diversity and potentially contribute to population growth, it cannot be guaranteed as a complete solution to the complex challenge of low birth rates.
Well, thank you so much for your insight. I have one last thing I'm curious about. What are some limitations or hurdles that seem to be stopping Korea from better transitioning into a multicultural society? What do you think needs more work? And can you give us some policies from the Philippines that we could refer to?
Yeah, sure. So moving towards a multicultural society in Korea comes with its share of challenges, encompassing the historical and cultural homogeneity, language barriers, social integration, international support. There are employment opportunities and education. So drawing from insights here in the Philippines, my country, specifically here in Davao, there are a lot of ethnic groups with a diverse culture. I think Korea can enhance its transition by adopting measures like language integration and cultural exchange programs, fostering diversity in media and education, and establishing community support centers. So it is vital to tailor these policies to Korea's specific context and taking into account its distinct history, culture, and societal dynamics. So successful multicultural integration requires collaborative efforts involving the government, community organizations, and probably the private sectors.
I totally agree. Collaboration seems to be key here. Thank you so much, Jade. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. And apart from South Korea and the Philippines, we also asked our viewers from other parts of the world to tell us whether they're living in a multicultural society. If so, what they think are the pros and cons. Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of our viewers had to share with us. Amola said, I'm from India, so there are definitely a lot of pros. The problem is that the diversity causes friction in terms of agreement over policies many a time, not to mention the religious divide problem we have had since forever. The plus point is, though, that you basically get a varied exposure to a rich cultural heritage, which shapes your perspective in indescribable ways. Tears Bell says the U.S. has been considered the melting pot of the world for years. The positives are that people can easily experience culture other than their own. The negatives are when 2 cultures have opposite ideas due to their cultures clashing. Zen said, in the Caribbean, we are the result of 500+ years of change of ownership and change of language, which gives the local diaspora a wealth of different cultural influences and societal norms. It's often a positive in living in the region, but it has taken much turmoil even today to get here. So we can see that multiculturalism is a prevailing topic in other parts of the world, but I do think that we still need a lot more effort in order for us to be more welcoming and getting over the problem of integration or trying to facilitate better adjustment. And as millennials and Gen Z that are leading this type of trend, what do you think we can do to better prepare to enter a multicultural society?
I think obviously it's very simple, is that we accept all cultures and all religions. I do agree with our guest before that I don't think having internationals come in to boost the birth rate is the way to go, but that doesn't mean that we should be rejecting them in any way possible. So I think we should just all be happy and healthy and love each other, and that should just be the rule of the day.
It should be, not just here in Korea, but in all parts of the world.
Exactly.
What about you, Brooke?
Yeah, that's right. My shirt today says love.
Love.
And so I hope that everyone loves each other. My best advice would be to keep yourself open to experiences. I've been in Korea for 25% of my life, and I think it has totally enriched my life and made me a better person. So I would recommend getting out there, make connections with people from other backgrounds. Don't let language barriers be a barrier to you learning more about the world and the diverse people in it. That's my best advice.
Take a leap of courage, and as you mentioned, and also Jade mentioned and Walter mentioned, I think it's a collaborative effort that we need to see, not only from individuals that are living here in Korea, but also for foreigners who are coming in. Everyone needs to be working together in order for us to better transition into a multicultural society. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Brooke Prince.
Thank you. It was so fun.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.